Hello everyone, this is a help video on the 9.1 and 2 quiz review. So if you have questions on any of the 10 problems, just scroll to whatever part of the video you need to. I did delete the last question, the word problem, because it was giving people troubles, and there will be a word question, but it'll be more like the 9.1 and 2 problem solving. So if for studying for those, just look at yesterday's problem solving assignment. So for question 1, the axis of symmetry, whenever you're doing that, is you use negative b over 2a. So for us, we would have negative b is 6 over 2 times a, which is 3. So if you simplify this, you get negative 1. So negative 1 is what you put here. Actually, I'm just going to type it in. Negative 1. And then for the vertex, you would write negative 1, comma, and then the y-coordinate of the vertex you get by plugging in negative 1 back into your equation for x. So you would write 3 times negative 1 squared plus 6 times negative 1 minus 4. Make sure you put parentheses around the negative 1, and the squared goes after the parentheses. If you type this in your calculator or the little Desmos button up there, which is really useful, you would get negative 7. Okay, so negative 1, comma, negative 7 is your vertex. The y-intercept, whenever it's in standard form, the y-intercept is the same thing as c. So the y-intercept here would be negative 4, but we wouldn't write negative 4, we would write it as a coordinate. So 0, comma, negative 4. That y-intercept is also going to help us with graphing the equation. All right. For your domain, it's always the all real number symbol, which is found under the symbols, arrow over, and then click the R button. The range is either going to be y greater than or equal to or y less than or equal to. If the parabola opens up, it's going to be greater than. If the parabola opens down, it's going to be less than. For us, our parabola is opening up because this 3 here is positive. The a is positive, so positive a. So it's going to be y greater than or equal to. So y greater than or equal to. Well, greater than or equal to what? Well, that depends on what the vertex actually is. So if you look at the y of the vertex, it's negative 7. So it's going to be y, anything greater than or equal to negative 7 for y. All right, so the function is open, the function is narrower than, because remember that if the a value, this depends on the a value. So if the absolute value of a is greater than 1, then that makes it narrower. If the absolute value of a is a fraction between 0 and 1, like 1/2 or 1/4 or 1/3, then that will make it wider. Remember when we did that back at the beginning when we were exploring the graphs of exponential functions. You might want to look back at that first assignment from 9.1. So now it's time to graph. So first of all, we plot the axis of symmetry, which is at negative 1. So x equals negative 1 is your equation for the axis of symmetry, so here and there. And then to graph the parabola, you plot the vertex, which is at negative 1, negative 7. Sorry, I meant to drag this point over here. And then you plot the y-intercept if you can. So that would be at 0, negative 4. I don't know why. Oh, I know why that didn't work. Let me undo this. Okay. I'm going to drag this over 0, negative 4. Also, to get the second point, you could look at the slope. If your a is 3, that means to get the next point, you would go up 3 over 1. Or you could type it into your y equals in your calculator and look at the table to get another point. All right, let's look at question 2. So for this question, axis of symmetry is negative b over 2a, so that would be negative, b is negative 8 over 2 times a, which is negative 2. So this means that the two negatives will cancel, but this negative stays and makes the whole thing negative. 8 over 4, 2 times 2 is 4, so 8 over 4 is 2. So negative 2 should be your answer here, which means also that if you're going to graph, then the axis of symmetry equation would look like that. And then your vertex is at negative 2. To get the y value, we plug in negative 2 for x. So we're going to do negative 2 times negative 2 squared minus 8 times negative 2 plus 6. Or was it plus 6? No, it was minus 2, I think. So let me scroll up. Yeah, negative 2. So type this all on your calculator all at once. Don't do it in parts, just do it all at once. That's easier. And you should get 6. So that means 6 is the y coordinate of the vertex, which also means that that 6 is going to be used in the range. So I'm also going to just put 6 right here down for the range, so I don't forget that that's the number that we want to use. The y-intercept is going to be 0, comma, whatever the c is, negative 2. Your domain is all real numbers, symbols, arrow over, all real numbers. And then the function, well, negative 2 is your a value here. It's still, technically, the absolute value is still bigger than 1, so it's still going to be narrower than the parent function. All right, so then let's graph the parabola. Let's plot the vertex at 2, 6. And then let's plot the next point on the y-intercept 0, negative 2. Okay, the problem you might find is this. It makes it go sideways. So remember, the fix for this is if you plot the mirror point, because remember that it's symmetric. So if there's a point 2 units to the right of the axis of symmetry, there's also a point 2 units to the left of the axis of symmetry. And look, it still goes through that point. It's just that we plotted it on the other side to make it go down. Also, for the range, I didn't answer this question all the way. Since this parabola is opening down, since the a is negative, that means we choose y less than or equal to 6. Okay, so that answers that question. Number 3 involves converting the equations from number 1 and 2 into vertex form. So we need to figure out what the a, h, and k are. So for question 1, the a was 3. And remember that our vertex for number 1 was negative 1, negative 7. Our vertex for number 2 was negative 2, 6. So our h is negative 1, and our k is negative 7. So I'm going to plug this all into the formula for vertex. So it's going to be 3 parentheses x plus 1, since we have to do the opposite sign, squared, and then minus 7. And then equation 2 will be the a, I believe, was negative 2. So we'll have negative 2 parentheses x plus 2, since you're doing the opposite sign of this negative 2, plus 6. So opposite sign in the parentheses, same sign outside of the parentheses. For 4, this one, you're just finding the vertex. So for this question, if you zoom in a little bit, the vertex is right here. It's at negative 1, comma 4. So negative 1, comma 4. For this question, the next part, though, you have to use negative b over 2a to figure that out. So negative b, negative 8 over 2 times a, which is negative 4. I think we did a question like this, just it had a different c. So those negatives cancel, and you're left with negative 2. Then you plug negative 2 back in for x. So negative 2 squared, minus 8 times negative 2 plus 3. And I think you get 11, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check. Negative 2 times negative 2 squared minus 8 times negative 2 plus 3 is 11. So you would get, for here, negative 2, 11. So since this maximum is at 11 and the other maximum is at 4, that means graph B has a larger maximum. Next question. So this is not asking you anything different than what the other questions are asking. It's asking for the axis of symmetry, negative b over 2a. It just wants, if it asks you to put the equation, it just wants you to put the x part. So you're going to write x equals and not just the number. So negative b over 2a would be negative negative 3 over 2 times a, which is 2. Negatives cancel. 2 times 2 is 4, so this is 3/4. And also, since it's a fraction, you wouldn't be able to find this in your table because your table for the x column, it only gives you like 0, 1, 2, 3. It doesn't have fractions in it. All right, for 6. This question is recalling something from Unit 8. So it wants you to factor out the GCF. So for here, our GCF would be 3x. And then we'd be left with x and then minus 9. So then this answer would give you x equals 0. This answer would give you x equals 9. So those are what you would put for the smaller and the larger solution. All right, 7. So here you have, it says you've got a rocket that's being launched, so it goes up, and then after 4 seconds, it comes back down and lands on the ground after 8 seconds. That means that it's in the air for 8 seconds. Answer question 1. What is the greatest height of the rocket reaches? So if we use negative b over 2a, well, this is the greatest height, so we don't want to just estimate that, but we can assume that it's at 4 if the whole thing is 8, halfway between is 4. If you didn't know that, you still could have used negative b over 2a. So you would do negative b is 128 over 2 times a, which is, I think it's negative 16. So if you plug this in your calculator, you would end up getting 4. And then that's the time it reaches its maximum height. Then you plug that back into the equation to get what the actual height is. So I would do negative 16 times 4 squared plus 128 times 4. And that's going to give me 256. So then 256 will be what the greatest height is of the rocket. How high is the rocket after 1 second? So that you do the same thing here, except you plug in 1 and 1. And then for 4 and 5, you do the same thing, but you plug in 2 and 6. So 2 here, 2, 6. Now think about 4 and 5. When the rocket is at 2 seconds, look up here. It's right there. When the rocket is at 6 seconds, it's right here. It's just at the same height. So the answer for part 4 and 5 are actually going to be the same. But the first part, the rocket is going up, and the second time it reaches 192, it's when it's coming back down. I think I might have just told you the answer. But I don't remember if that's exactly the right answer, so you'll have to plug it in and double check. So for 6, is the rocket traveling faster from 0 to 1 or 3 to 4 seconds? So for us, here is from 0 to 1 second, and then here's from 0 to 3 to 4 seconds. So which one is it traveling faster? Somebody in the other class said it was this one because it's traveling a greater distance, and that is exactly correct. Okay, because this part is steeper than this part, it's actually moving faster here, and as it gets closer to the maximum, there's actually a specific instant where it reaches its maximum height and the velocity is actually 0. So it's actually not moving at all at this very specific instant in time. And then it travels back down, gets slower, and then gets faster as it reaches the ground. That's because of gravity. Gravity is an acceleration that moves something down. So that should answer that question. The part about the domain and range. So it says 0 less than or equal to, A less than or equal to T less than or equal to B. So what do we use for A and B? So if you look at your graph, A and B, it says the domain. So the A and B are where it starts and where it ends. So here, our time starts at 0 and it ends at 8. So you're going to say 0 less than or equal to T less than or equal to 8. And then for the range, it's going to be the same thing, except you're going to say H. So it starts at 0 and it goes all the way up to that maximum point that you found in question 1. So 0 less than or equal to H less than or equal to 256. There will not be a question like this on the quiz, but it will be a bonus question. All right. And then this was supposed to say 0 to 4 and 4 to 8. So it's increasing 0 to 4, it's decreasing 4 to 8. Question 8. So for this one, the ball is thrown into the air. The path of the ball is represented by that equation. What is the maximum height of the ball? So we need to find the axis of symmetry, plug it in to get the height. So here we're saying t equals negative b over 2a, so that would be negative 8 over 2 times a, which is negative 1. Negatives cancel and you get 4. Then you plug 4 back in, so negative 4 squared plus 8 times 4. Now notice that I'm not squaring the negative sign because that's part of the equation. It's like negative 1 times 4 squared. So this is negative 16 plus 32, which is positive 16. So 16, and then use meters for your units for that one. And then when you're graphing it, you want to graph the vertex, which is 4, 16, so over 4 up 16. And then the next point you can plot is the y-intercept. So if you plugged in 0 for x, you would get 0 for y. So here would be the y-intercept. All right, so it looks like that. You could have also used your table, plugged this into your y equals, looked at the table to get another point. Okay, so these questions, it says, consider the graph if a is multiplied by 3. So if this is 3, then that would make the parabola narrower. That's back with question 1. So the new parabola is narrower than the original parabola. And then what if it's multiplied by 2 and then 1/2? So with 2, it would get narrower. With 1/2, it would get wider. So D would be the right answer for this one. The graph would get narrower with 2 and wider with 1/2. Okay, and that is the end. I hope that helped. Good luck on your studying for your quiz tomorrow.